The war wasn't lost on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. It was lost years earlier, in the deafening silence of a subterranean prison cell, where the only sound was the rasping breath of dying men. We are told that the Mahabharata is a war of righteousness, a battle between good cousins and bad cousins. But history is written by the victors, and the victors have conveniently forgotten the monster they created. They say Shakuni was the root of all evil. They say he was a jealous, conniving uncle who poisoned the mind of a prince and destroyed a glorious empire out of pure spite. But what if that is a lie? What if the man you know as the villain was actually the most tragic victim of the entire epic? What if the dice that rolled across the gaming hall weren't just tools of chance, but the physical remains of a genocide? Prepare yourself. You are about to walk into the darkness of the Andhakupa, the blind well, to uncover the secret vow that turned a prince into a weapon. This is not the story of a bad man. This is the story of a son who loved his father enough to burn the world for him. The seeds of this apocalypse were sown not with hate, but with a simple marriage proposal. Bhishma, the grandsire of the Kuru Dynasty, brought the might of Hastinapura to the mountain kingdom of Gandhara. He demanded the hand of Princess Gandhari for the blind prince Dhritarashtra. It was an offer that couldn't be refused, backed by the implicit threat of the Kuru armies. But Gandhara held a secret. The princess was technically a widow. To avert a cosmic astrological defect, a Mangalik dosha, she had been married to a goat, which was then sacrificed. It was a technicality, a ritual to cheat fate. But when the spies of Hastinapura discovered this after the royal wedding, they didn't see a ritual. They saw treason. They believed the pure lineage of the Kuru house had been polluted by a deceitful mountain clan. The retribution was swift and absolute. There was no trial. There was no war. Dhritarashtra, enraged by the perceived betrayal, ordered the imprisonment of the entire male lineage of Gandhara. King Subala and his 100 sons were thrown into a single, lightless cell. The sentence was not execution. It was far crueler. It was an experiment in despair. Imagine the darkness. 101 men, royal princes, crammed into a stone box deep beneath the earth. The air is stale, thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and rising panic. Then comes the food. The guard lowers a single plate. On it, there is one handful of rice. 1 cup of water. For 101 men. The message was clear. Hastinapura wanted them to turn on each other. They wanted the starving princes to fight like dogs for a crumb, to tear each other apart in the dark. It was a torture designed to strip them of their humanity before it stripped them of their lives. But King Subala was a strategist. He looked at his sons, strong warriors wasting away, their ribs cutting through their skin, and he realized the grim calculus of their fate. If they shared the food, they would all die within weeks. The Kuru line would be safe. The insult would be forgotten. But if one lived, if one man consumed the energy of 100, that man could survive. That man could escape. That man could take revenge. The decision was made in hushed, weeping whispers. They would not share. They would sacrifice. They looked among themselves to find the one with the sharpest mind, the one with the capacity for cold, calculated cruelty required to destroy an empire. They chose the youngest. They chose Shakuni. Now, step into Shakuni's mind. Sit with him in that darkness. Every day, the plate descends. Every day, his brothers, the men who taught him to ride, to fight, to laugh, sit in silence, watching him eat. He has to swallow every grain of rice while his brothers' stomachs rumble with the agony of starvation. He is eating their lives. With every mouthful, a part of his soul dies, and a part of the monster grows. One by one, they drop. The cell fills with corpses. As King Subala lay dying, the last survivor beside his son, he performed a final, horrific act of conditioning. He knew that time heals all wounds. He knew that if Shakuni escaped, the comforts of a palace might soften his rage. With his last ounce of strength, Subala took a heavy stone and smashed Shakuni's leg. The bone shattered. Shakuni screamed in the darkness. Subala grabbed his son's face and whispered the final command, "Walk with a limp. Every time you take a step, let the pain remind you of us. Let the pain remind you of what they did. Do not rest until the line of Kuru is extinct." Then, the king died. Shakuni was alone in the dark, surrounded by 100 ghosts, crippled, traumatized, and dangerously alive. Pause here for a second. This is not just a revenge story, this is a case study in asymmetric warfare. Shakuni emerges from that prison a broken man. He has no army. He cannot challenge Bhishma or Drona on the battlefield, they are nuclear powers. So, Shakuni abandons the Kshatriya code. He adopts the doctrine of Kuta Niti, covert, deceptive warfare. He doesn't need to kill them. He needs to make them kill each other. When Shakuni is finally released, an act of pity that would prove to be the costliest mistake in history, he doesn't run. He stays. He integrates. He becomes the benevolent uncle. But he didn't leave empty-handed. The dark folklore tells us he took the thigh bones of his father and crafted them into a pair of dice. These were not ordinary gaming pieces. They were necromantic artifacts. When Shakuni shook those dice, he wasn't shaking ivory. He was rattling the skeleton of his murdered family. They rolled exactly what he needed them to roll, because the ghost within them demanded blood. He found his instrument in Duryodhan. He identified the prince's insecurity and watered it with whispers. He wasn't spoiling his nephew, he was strapping a suicide vest onto him. The climax of this operation was the Dayuta Krida, the game of dice. This was Shakuni's battlefield. He invited Yudhishthir, knowing the eldest Pandav could not refuse a challenge. Shakuni sat across from him, the limp leg stretched out, a hidden weapon. He cast the dice. Clatter. Clatter. Win. With every roll, he stripped Yudhishthir of his defenses. First the jewels. Then the kingdom. Win it back, Shakuni whispered. Stake your brothers. Stake yourself. And when Yudhishthir had nothing left, Shakuni played his ace. He called for Draupadi. When she was dragged into the hall, when the Kuru court descended into absolute moral depravity, Shakuni didn't look away. He watched. Inside, he was smiling. He had pushed them past the point of no return. War was inevitable. For 13 years, he tended that fire. He made sure Duryodhan's heart remained hard. He blocked every peace treaty. When Krishna came asking for 5 villages, it was Shakuni's conditioning that made Duryodhan say, not even a needlepoint of land. Then came the harvest. The war of Kurukshetra. Millions gathered on the plains to die. And Shakuni, true to his vow, watched it all. He watched his own nephews, the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, die one by one. Bhima crushed them, ripped them apart, just as Shakuni had planned. The news would come to the camp, Dushasana is fallen. Any other uncle would be weeping. But Shakuni? He was counting. Balancing the ledger. 100 Kauravas for 100 Gandhars. A son for a son. A dynasty for a dynasty. On the final day, Sahadev came for him. As the blade came down, Shakuni wasn't looking at his killer. He was looking past him, towards the smoke rising from the funeral pyres of the Kuru Empire. The prison cell was empty. The debt was paid. The vow was fulfilled. So, I ask you, was he a villain or the most loyal son in history? Judge him in the comments below. And if you want to uncover the dark, forgotten truths of India's greatest epics, subscribe. Because the story you know is only half the truth.